Welcome to the Marketing for Learning podcast, the show where we ditch the fluff, drop the jargon, and help people professionals just like you think a little bit more like marketers. Well, hello. Hasn't it been a bit of a summer break? I hope you guys have recharged and recovered, perhaps after the summer holidays, if you have children like I do. It was an emotional and relieving time to send my son back to school on Tuesday. So here we are. We've also taken a break on the Marketing for Learning podcast, and I bring to you a brand new episode. Yesterday, in fact, I had a wonderful conversation with Dr. Serena Gonsalves-Fersch and Lori Niles-Hofmann. We got together to talk about transformation in L&D and to discuss Lori's new book, The 8 Levers of Edtech Transformation, which is exceptional, by the way. Highly recommend reading it, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. These ladies are some of my most favorite people in our industry, some of the sharpest minds out there, very data-led, data-oriented. We all thought very similar things, but you're guaranteed to leave with some new ideas. I learned a lot from Lori about AI agents, for example. And hopefully you have a bit of fun and some laughs as well, because my stomach hurt from laughing so much. So here we go. Without further ado, I'm going to ping on over into the audio from yesterday's webinar.
Hello and welcome. This is a podcast actually, it's not a podcast, it's a webinar, isn't it? And it's live. It's on LinkedIn Live. Helps to get the terminology right. I'm Dr. Serena Gonsalves-Fersch. I'm the Global Head of Talent at Software One. And today our session is part of the Organizational Mastery Series. And we are talking to Lori Niles-Hofmann and Ashley Hinchcliffe. Our session today, so just to recap on what the Organization Mastery Series was about, this started about a year and a half ago with me documenting the findings of my research that led to my doctorate, which was in the future of learning in technology accelerating and hypergrowth firms. During the course of the 5-year research, I had the pleasure of speaking with Lori and Ashley, and it was very important for us to talk about what is it that the role of technology plays and will continue to play in L&D going forward. Nicely, it coincided with the launch of Lori's book on the 8 levers of EdTech and on Ashley's People Loop model. So I'm going to hand over to these lovely ladies and attempt to speak as little as possible, handing over to the experts. Lori.
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me, and also to Ashley, having, I guess you're herding us cats here, because we're all in different locations. And I am the weakest link. I know my microphone is being temperamental, and I was getting a little bit of buzz, and then I mute it, and it comes back all quiet. I have no idea. Anyway, yeah, thank you for having me. It's exciting to be a part, also to be asked. Serena, you've been a wonderful mentor, and I look up to all the work that you do, and especially with your doctorate. So it's an honor to be here. And really, I guess we'll look at the book. The book is The 8 Levers of EdTech Transformation, although I did a webinar in the US, and apparently I'm supposed to say levers. But I say levers, and I also say privacy, and I also say progress. So you're going to get all the Canadianisms here. I cannot help it. It's what it is. Basically, the book is the culmination of having done a lot of global enterprise EdTech implementations, starting from when I was just like project managing, just worrying about the actual tech integration, to ones where I was leading more on the strategy, and then ones where I was just delivering the entire thing with a team. And what I found is over time, I started to see consistent things that needed to be in place, and other places where errors were going to come up, no matter how well the integrations worked or how well, even how great the systems were. These were things that over and over again were just causing consistent problems. And so I wrote the book as basically a field guide to people to not make the same screw ups that I made that were painful and politically limiting career moves. But they were what happened when we didn't know a lot about tech. Should I go into the 8 levers of what they are?
Oh, yeah. That's okay.
That's why I'm here. I'm excited. I'm getting the cliff notes. This is great.
So I gotta remember my eight levers. The funny part is actually when I wrote the book, I called it the 9 levers of EdTech transformation, and I had purchased 9levers.com. And then my husband read my first transcript, the first edit, and he said, "Yeah, I counted, and there's only 8." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So I had to buy a new domain, had to scrap the whole thing and start all over again. But basically, the first one is a new target operating model. And for me, it doesn't matter what tech you're investing in. And really, that's one of the core things in the book. I'm really big into reduce, reuse, recycle. Look at what you have. But you do need to operate in a new target operating model, which means get rid of the annual plan. You're going to need to be far more iterative and reflexive to the business. You're also going to have to look at prediction, which brings to the second lever, which is really all about data. I've been fascinated by data ever since I worked for a company called Eloqua back in the day. This is 2014. It was marketing automation. And when I saw how they could use data, I was like, why do we not have this? Why do we not have the data? Why is it not there? And to this day, a lot of those data systems actually still are not in existence, but they're coming. The third one is your content strategy. And what I really should have titled this is actually the courseless learning department. What does it look like when you don't have courses, not even maybe resources? What does it look like when you're just conversing with an AI coach or an agent? And L&D is really just curating the retrieval augmentation for that, the RAG. There's a lot to consider in that. And there's also what I get really interested in is even if we are doing formal learning, it should be self-sustaining, or I call it virtuous cycle. It's actually looking at impact in real time and correcting itself or pivoting to get the maximum results. Lever 4, skills revolution, talk about psycho skillers and serial skillers. And sorry, Serena.
Ooh.
So just I had to put in a little. There's for those of you who are. For those of you who are of a certain age, which I will confess to being, big fan of the Talking Heads, and so I had Psycho Skiller in there, and I wove in a few other 80s alt rock, progressive rock messages in there. But really the skills revolution, who is pivoting to skills? What do skills mean? Why does it make a difference? Do we really need to care? And what's actually possible or not? The weakest lever for me is stakeholder management, but I had to put that in because I think it's important. Knowledge management and marketing, that's actually lever 6. I really believe that L&D has to partner with knowledge management. And if we are going to make personalized, hyper-personalized learning experiences that are contextual to the organization, that's not going to come from L&D. That's going to come from knowledge management shoring up what L&D actually has in their library. The marketing part, I will, of course, leave to Ashley, so I will not steal the thunder there. But that is definitely something you need to think of as an organization. Lever 7 is ecosystems thinking. Where are we plugging in? Skills intelligence platforms, talent marketplaces, any of those types of things within the organization has to be one symbiotic ecosystem. And what are the ramifications for that? I'm sure in April, I know we all were kind of glued to our phones when we saw that Microsoft was launching the skills intelligence tool and what that means for that closed ecosystem. I realized I just showed my inner nerd, but yeah, I was quite fascinated by it. And what does this mean? There's a lot to unpick there. And finally, strategic alignment with the business. Like if you don't have this, just like don't bother, right? Like it's you have to know how you're aligned with the business. And then there's a little funny chapter on selecting EdTech where I give all of my tips and hints and secret advice as to how you actually want to partner with a vendor and how to negotiate with them. That's it. That's the book.
Wow, that's everything. Oh my goodness. I'm not even sure where to start. So we will start, therefore, with the knowledge management and marketing because that's a really nice segue into Ashley. And I've mentioned this also in the doctorate, having quoted you ladies, of course. One of the things that every single learning function gets wrong is the assumption, and Ashley has spoken about this quite in depth. If you build it, they will come. Ain't nobody coming. No one's coming.
Yep.
If you build it and no one knows it exists, and we go through this even now in our organizations where I think I've told them, I think I've told them again, and I think I've told them that I told them, but
Yeah.
still the people do not know where learning exists. And I don't know whether the issue is because we're equating where people know where learning exists, they probably don't know where the content sits. And they're two separate things that we've convoluted and mushed up all together. So, Ashley, rather than either Laurie or me talking about how much we admire your work and the field of marketing for L&D, tell us a little bit about it and what you're doing with the people loop.
Yeah, so obviously, again, thank you, Laurie. I love how data informed and data led you've always been. And I think the people impact loop is essentially a very similar sort of idea and framework to what you're proposing, which is using data to be the linchpin of everything that we do in people functions. So what I've found over the time that I've been running Mass, which is nearly 6 years now, is when we've done extensive discovery over 100 hours across mine and Hans' efforts, speaking to employees and stakeholders in a broad range of functions, industries, global locations, so on and so forth. There's a lot of things that emerge and some very common red threads that sit across all of that unify these functions that have become somewhat dysfunctional, for want of a better expression. And the fundamental aspect is we just don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to actually drive impact for the business. And we don't know what's actually going to effectively service our employees in a way that is relevant. Relevancy comes up almost every single time we do discovery. I don't know what's here for me, but I also don't know what I should be doing to help me accomplish my goals. I want to be really proficient in the role I'm in now, but I also want to maybe go sideways somewhere else. I want to ascend the career ladder, whatever that might be. And most of our employees are incredibly rudderless when it comes to that direction and that steer. They're looking to L&D to guide them, and we just get platforms and content and chuck it all there, build it, and the expectation is that they'll of course come, which just isn't the case. So, as you already said, the people impact loop basically uses data and insights to inform everything that we do. So it takes very much, it's astonishing the 8 levers in this are very similar, I think, Laurie, considering, which is good. It means that we're singing from the same hymn sheet. The first and foremost, we should be gathering data insights, right? We should be speaking to the business. We should be understanding what the business is trying to achieve, not only now, but maybe over the next 1, 3, even 5 years. Is M&A in our future? Because that's probably going to affect our talent strategy, our skills development strategy, so on and so forth. Is Gen AI going to become a significant part of our workflows, right? How does that affect the people function, the learning and development function, the talent function, so on and so forth? If we don't have that insight, we're never going to be aligned to the business. Conversely, we also need to speak to our people, the very people we are building to serve. It is crucial that we understand. This is what marketers do, right? This is when we're talking about marketing, the people impact loop is marketing. Getting market research, talking, hearing it from the horse's mouth. What is going on? What is going on in the organization? I think a lot of us really genuinely don't have a view of what the true organizational culture is like. We hear aspirational ideas of the culture on a slide deck. That is not the lived reality of a lot of employees. And if you're willing to sit down with them and have an open conversation, you can learn a lot about how you can better service them, whilst also balancing that with the strategic goals of the business. So once you have a lot of data, that allows you to do 2 subsequent things. Step 1, get your data. Step 2, align with the business, right? Very much what Laurie said. We cannot drive impact. We cannot strive to ever get more budget and have more weight and gravitas in the organization if we are not delivering impact for the business. That is our role. I know, Serena, that you very much work to that ethos and very much in the role that you're in. If it doesn't deliver a bottom line impact, we don't do it. And it is that simple. So once you're aligned to the business, great. Then you can start to look at your learning products, right? It doesn't mean you need to start from scratch, but take all those insights that you've had from the people you've spoken to and actually refine, evolve, use Laurie's levers again to enhance and change what you're currently delivering so that you can help accomplish the business goals, but also knowingly using the data that you've captured, create more positive learning experiences that are destined for good engagement. Because in marketing, we have an issue of something called the product market fit. So if the marketing's really good, but the product sucks, it will flop. If the product's really great, but the marketing's good, it will flop. We need a good product, and we also need good marketing. So in L&D, we sometimes have one or the other, or sometimes not either. Largely maybe the last one. And so the reality is we need to refine that product to be much more led towards our employees and their needs, whilst also balancing that with the business requirements. And then and only then can we really look at campaigning, right? And true marketing, I think what people would say marketing really is that, making my posters and doing my emails and things like that. Fantastic, great. You should have data and insights, again, to build out really robust campaigns that span months, not days, to really effectively target and engage with audiences over a period of time. Then and only then we should be able to get more data and help us test, iterate, evolve. And then, as you can imagine, that feeds back into the loop, back to step one. That wasn't really an elevator pitch or even anything relatively succinct, but that is the people impact loop in a nutshell. And very much, as Laurie's kind of principles are the same, using the information that we have at our disposal. People leave significant digital exhaust in our organizations. We have this information. It's not always easy to attain, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
That's, amazing, Ashley, and I love how you bring it into it's an iterative approach, and especially that term, that there's exhaust out there. A lot of times, I'm always fascinated when I talk to IT and ask them about what data they have, and it's like they actually have a lot. They just haven't known to do anything with it. I mean, these. Especially, if you're using some of these systems like a Microsoft, or even G Suite, a lot of that data is already captured. It's somewhere, but there's an administrator who's either never looked at it or they just haven't bothered mining it or anything. So, I love that. I love that point that it's actually there. It's in the atmosphere, like pollution, but it's there, for people definitely to access. You just have to know who to talk to and ask the right questions. And of course, be very mindful of the data privacy laws and rules in your jurisdiction, and especially too for your geography and industry. I always add that caveat in.
Yeah, and I think, prioritizing the time to do that as well. We find a lot that L&D gets very inundated with doing the do. We've got programs to create and deliver. We've got leadership training to have. We don't have time for capturing all this data. But actually, it should be the core of what we do, because if we want those things to be effective and drive the outcomes that we're striving for, then it's not a nice to have. It's not something we should be stepping over or overlooking. It should be, we cannot take the next step until we have this.
Completely agree. And that's one of the things that I've been doing a deep dive on is, can that be automated, via agents? Can we, so I've been building a few agents that will look at specific pieces of data. I'm still trying to get the whole structure to work. I don't have a manager agent yet, but I have agents. Trying. My poor little laptop is so old, and I'm sacrificing it. So I figure one day it's just going to go up in a puff of smoke because I put so much junk on it. I'm like, that's okay. I'm letting it happen. Everything's on the cloud anyway, but this is just what I'm trying to do here. But I'm using agents to then go out and capture that data and start making recommendations. The recommendations, I'll be honest, are kind of shite, but the fact that they can just automatically bring the data in and pull it into a dashboard and correlate some of that, I think that automation to it for that disparate sources of data to bring it in and triangulate it and do something with it, that takes some of the burden off of the L&D function. But again, it comes down to, how are you using agents in your organization? Do you know how to build them? Are they allowed to, run off autonomously and do stuff? I mean, these aren't really doing any harm. They're pulling data, but still data has sensitivities where you store it and who can see it. And, and when you triangulate it, you want to make sure that causation and correlation are weeded out. But we can automate some of that, which I think is exciting.
Laurie, I'm going to ask you a question, and I think I might be speaking for a lot of L&D people. So I love to think that I'm very, very data driven, and you all know it. Everything is business impact. Everything is stakeholder led. If I do a sales piece of training, I try and map it to what the change in sales numbers was. So I'm going into our CRM system and our sales system. And if I do a piece of services related training, then we check how quickly people are billable and chargeable. But what we are doing is quite manual. I have a brilliant data analyst, data scientist in my team who literally works on Power BIs and is pulling out from all of these systems into that. I also know that as an L&D person, we like to talk the talk with tech, but we don't understand any of it. I mean, let's be completely honest. None of us would know what an agentic AI was if it came and bit us in the proverbial. So if we had to take us back and you had to tell people listening in what was an agent and that wasn't the FBI, where would you
Okay, yeah, so it's not a secret agent. The way that I think of agents, and this is not only my analogy, others have used it, it's kind of like a really, really green and fresh intern that doesn't know where the photocopier is or the coffee maker, okay? So that agent is basically, you're giving it a very specific set of operating instructions and steps to follow. And you tell it exactly what you want it to do, where you want it to go, where it cannot go. Some people get fancy and give them personalities and blah, blah, blah. Like, forget about all that. Like, I'm just going to go into the very basics, and say that so it can perform tasks on your behalf. That's a simple agent. So for example, I have an agent that goes into my email overnight because I work in Toronto, so I'm 5-6 hours behind everybody else, and it sorts through my emails and it prioritizes, and it also generates auto replies. Okay, so that's what my agent does. It doesn't do a great job of it because I built it myself, but I like to play with it, and he does his best. So I'm kind of attached to him right now. So that's okay.
But you named your agent, Laurie.
Yes, you decided he's in jail.
I have
named my agent. It can't be Claude. It's got to be something else.
His name is Sven. But anyway,
you would have.
My name. But then again,
sorry.
It's okay. My agent is Sven. But then again, if you come to our house, we have names for a lot of things. My husband and I, we have a humidifier called Carl. So, these things happen. Anyway, I do a lot of anthropomorphizing, which is not a good habit. But that agent is something that you can teach it to do on a task on a very basic level. Sometimes you also want human in the loop. For example, Sven, as smart as he is, I don't want him sending emails back and forth because I want to be that human in the loop to make sure that tone is the way that I want it, that it's saying the things I want it to say, and it's not making up garbage. So there's that aspect of it. So that's really how agents can work. Now, I'm not even getting into like reasoning agents and agentic. Let's just stick with agents doing simple tasks. But if you think even to, like, for example, your data that your data analyst is doing and monitoring, impact. If you had an agent that's looking at impact in real time and making recommendations to augment or change a course if you aren't meeting expectations, or if you are, and saying that's good, let's keep doing more of that. Now you've got that virtuous cycle of learning, and that's all driven by agents. So that's a one-on-one, but like a real zip through what agents are. If you ever want to learn more, though, I highly recommend, and I'm not pushing vendors, but I go to Zapier.com, Zapier, and they run tons of webinars where you can get hands-on, dirty. They do weekend hackathons, all sorts of stuff where you can really build an agent. I mean, there's lots of other tools out there. You can even build some in, Power Automate in Microsoft, but I don't like it. So, but Zapier's for me is just far more intuitive.
I didn't even know Zapier did that. Like, I associate Zapier with like marketers use it to like webhooks kind of thing to pull data from different data systems, essentially. So they've built on that. It's very clever.
Totally. And when you look at it, you will recognize marketing campaign dashboards. You also recognize how you drag and drop and you do the flow charts. That's how you're building agents. There are even some tools, and I don't find them that great, but again, Microsoft, where you can like say verbally what you want your agent to do. Like I was trying to build one. I have neck problems, so I have to do physio every 30 minutes. So I put together a list of 30 different physio exercises. I said, I want you to give me a push out in Teams to remind me. Just pick a random one of these, and it just shows up as a notification for me. Wrote that out. Oh, I could not figure that out. He could not figure that out. And then I put it into ChatGPT and said, how would I rewrite these instructions so Microsoft, Power Automate would understand it? It did. And then I went back and it like just even went worse. But anyway, there's complications.
No Sven in the making of this webinar.
That wasn't Sven. Do not blame Sven for that. Don't blame Sven. That was not his fault. Sven is just the one who does my emails. But anyway, but that's another example of a very simple agent doing a very simple task, right? It's just it's randomizing a list and giving me a notification from that list every 30 minutes to say, hey, stretch your neck, idiot. Doesn't say idiot, but that's what I wanted it to do.
I would have it say idiot to me. I'd be like quite abusive, like get off your ass and do something.
Do
please.
something.
Like, be motivated.
Exactly.
Be clever. Be creative.
Voice of Mr. T or something, so you really feel
Exactly.
Mildly aggressive, passive aggressive. Yeah, I need that in my life.
But I also want to say, like when we talk about agents, like I think there's also some sort of there's confusion in terms of the words and how I hear people use them and stuff, because an agent could also be a coach, like sitting on top of your retrieval augmentation. So your RAG, right? It could be that. And that is an agent, but not in the sense that we're thinking of an agent doing one particular task, but it is effectively an agent. I wish like those terms start to get confusing. Like even as I was writing my book, I put in the beginning, like these terms are all in flux. Like if you even look back, AI was sometimes just machine learning. And that was what was considered a synonym to AI. So.
Well, I didn't know anything about agents, so thank you.
Secret agent.
Likewise, I was just pretending I could,
I was like, just tell me more. How do I do it? Like, can you help me?
I will lend you Sven. I will lend you Sven. He's problematic, but he's getting there. He's getting there.
Look, we all are. He sounds mercurial and very human, right? We're all right.
He's trying. He's trying.
A common theme from all of this, and I think, and we're a bit early to talk about themes, but the understanding of your audience, right? The understanding of, because we run into the content strategy and we run into the content building and we run into the without that context that data gives us and who our audience is, what the business wants and what it is that will have most impact on business value. Because let's be honest, we exist for business value. I keep joking, otherwise why don't we teach people salsa dancing or basket weaving? Because it doesn't give you business value. So I've never been a fan of the edutainment sort of angle of it. And I really like that now we have the ability to have technology help us understand our humans better so that we can deliver learning that suits them. And I know, Ashley, that's you do a lot with personas and understanding our audiences to deliver that. And I was wondering if you could pick up from there and make that link to how marketing helps.
Yeah, I mean, when you say it out loud, can you actually believe that it's true that we build blindly like that? Like so the reason I started maths genuinely was because for the 6 years prior to having mass. I worked vendor side all the way from like marketing coordinator up to CMO. And it never used to fail to astonish me that people would spend 6 figures on a platform. And beyond like maybe an RFP with some feature mapping, there was very little understanding of how people might use it, why.
Oh, you sweet summer child.
I know. I just couldn't believe it. And so, as a marketer, I spend a penny. It should turn into 5, right? Like there's got to be ROI. And I just couldn't believe that these £1 million budgets were being spent with no scrutiny from the business, and no real expectation to deliver value. And that is changing, I believe. I think there's a very large tsunami of change occurring. I see the open to work banner up. I see the redundancies. I see the people functions becoming L&D, talent, HR, so on and so forth. So if we go back to that point and being data informed, maybe not data led, don't blindly just follow the data. Let's use that to inform our decisions and then continue to query those data points. But personas are really important. So for anyone who doesn't know what a persona is, the idea is they're a semi-fictional representation of your target audience. They're used in marketing, and we use them in learning context to develop experiences and marketing campaigns and our messaging that feels personalized on a broad scale. So a one-to-many scenario, but still creating a sense of personalization in what we say and what we do. So when we typically talk about personas and L&D, people go, I have personas. I got managers, I got leadership, I got the employees. I'm not talking about demographics. I'm not talking about job title. I'm not talking about where they work in the world. I'm talking about their pain points at work, their motivators for their job, the reasons that they may choose to commit some time to learning. These all can very significantly influence how we might speak to people. Just a simple example. Let's look externally at someone who's never heard of Coca-Cola before. They can't just use I actually don't know what their tagline is. Tastes great, whatever. Right, so Coca-Cola's been going a really long time. I can still continue with this, it's fine. So someone who's bought Coca-Cola a lot just needs to see the red. Just needs to hear the can opening. They had an advert that did just that. That's enough to signal to someone, go buy a Coca-Cola. They've done so much work on establishing brand and product that they can just do that. But someone who's never heard of Coca-Cola before, I don't know where they've been living, but someone who's never heard of that before, you can't talk to them that way. You couldn't just have a can opening. That has no context. That means nothing. The red they might associate with Christmas or something else entirely in their country. So personas allow us to deepen that understanding and provide really important context. They are data informed again, and there is assumptions in there, right? So obviously we can't speak to every single handed a project with Capgemini University, 300,000+ employees. Can't speak to all of them. We would be doing that for all eternity. So we have to, get a cross-section of people, get a representation of the employee base, make those assumptions that are built on data, and then validate and test over time. But the idea behind these is to really build better products and build better marketing that are really closely linked with what people want and need, and primarily resolve pain points for them, because that is the primary driver for action and behavior change in humans.
So since we said, I love all that, I just, one caveat, since we said we would go off leash and off piste, there's been this big debate, and people have come to me with it. Should it be data-driven? Because when I wrote data-driven learning design, that was the term that I used, or data-informed. So I didn't use data-informed because data-informed learning design organization is a really terrible acronym. So that was my decision. So I went with data-driven.
I'll never forget it.
And I completely understand that data-informed, as Ashley has so astutely and intelligently articulated, is better, and I love you for it. I was too embarrassed
That's not the hill you're dying on. I get that. That's fine.
Maybe that's a marketing tip. Always check the acronym.
Always.
Always.
So many people are like data informed.
Learning-driven
Oh.
organization.
Oh! I saw it written out, and I was like, no, we're not. I'm not going there. I am not. I don't need people talking about their news, so we're not doing that.
Oh my goodness! Yes, what was that tangent?
Yeah,
We knew it would happen.
we're live and unstructured, unfiltered. Let's go for it.
I love it.
Slightly onto track, but I think the other thing what people and what I'm loving about both from when you talk about your personas and the focus on the audience, when you talk about the 8 levers and the focus on both the business, the stakeholder, and the audience, I think what really gets to me in all of this is that we don't eliminate the role of the human and how important their context is, because I think context is everything. Everybody who tells you L&D is a science is talking out of their no-nos. It's not. We are informed by education science. We failed this webinar. Sorry, people out there.
I said lots of people are working out the acronym now.
We're informed by neuroscience, we're informed by education science and by education theory, we're informed by learning and adult learning theory, we're informed by all of this, but none of it means anything if your organization context doesn't come onto the mix. And then you start looking at your agents and you start looking at your personas and you start looking at your stakeholders and you start looking at business outcomes. And I think that's a huge bit. We have this, I love the way you started the last bit actually, which was, I can't believe people just spend hundreds of thousands. I call it the spray and pray approach. If I buy like 6 content libraries, and just unleash the 20,000 courses per library on people, surely something's going to stick. It has to. Right?
Yeah, but to that point, Serena, I often wonder, and I've been thinking about this a lot, when we put, just that co-pilot or agent in front of a person, and it's just that blank bar, is that almost not the same as a spray and pray? We haven't really told them what to do or understand how to work with it. What I would be fascinated with is just, would it just start for me? Do you know what I mean? Like when I log in, would it say, okay, Lori, hi, I'm Sven, and I see your calendar today. I'm looking at, the project that you have going on. We know that your Excel skills are not up to par. Do we want to slot something in for that 15 minutes break, or do you have something else planned? Like that conversational where it's actually a two-way. I know that once I type something in, and if it's a really highly trained coach, and it's a really good coach that's been trained on learning principles and what is good learning design, or it's informed, about learning science, it's going to do that back for me. But I feel like it's also missing sometimes that business context, and it doesn't start for me. That to me is that gap where it's no different than a spray and pray. And I worry that we might be going down that rabbit hole if we don't have that coach that actually knows your organizational KPIs, that knows your skills taxonomy and skills gaps. All of those things need to inform that coach, not just the learning science, which is of course extremely important. Maybe I'm just lonely. Maybe I have blank page fear angst when I see it. Very Taylor Swift.
We had this discussion when we were putting in place an LXP in a former firm of mine, and everybody was the amount of time you spend designing the front end, right? Because you're going, will people be able to find stuff? How will people find stuff? And all I do is point them to Google. That's a blank page with a box. And nobody has ever complained about not being able to find stuff. But yet, when you manage to drag them kicking and screaming onto your LXP, they take one look at it, and your front page might have been designed by Michelangelo, and the first thing they're going to go is, can't find stuff. So I don't, where your agent, Sven, should be able to also help.
Sven doesn't do that, Serena. Sven just does emails.
Just emails. Agent that's doing everything, okay? Leave Sven alone.
Poor Sven. Can I just interject here? Because obviously we do speak to a lot of employees, right? And we do a lot of market research. And I would say that as a consequence of that, I have a really clear view of what I believe employees contend with. And like I said, the same themes come out time and time again. So having a very familiar tech ecosystem in L&D, which is a platform, these large content libraries, doesn't, overwhelming someone with choice doesn't really provide them with relevancy or context. So most people say to us, I want to do good in my job, and I maybe want to know what I need to do to go somewhere else, either within the organization or maybe skills that are going to help me get a promotion, future skills, whatever. Generally speaking, people do not. So we in L&D think we need to build an LXP with a beautiful front interface, because when people are they got to find stuff. They're not going there to search in the first place. They're not intrinsically motivated to go and find your LXP and find 50 different courses on Excel. How do they know which one's relevant for them? People have said to me, I go there and I find something, but then there's so many different courses and I don't know which one's my level of proficiency. I waste my time doing something that I already knew the answer to. I go to Google, because I can ask it a very simple, direct question and get my answer really succinctly. And guess what? I don't need to retain that knowledge either. I can just go and back and find it on Google if I need it. Mm-hmm. So I think there's like two different types of learning experiences that we need to cater for, which is knowledge at a point of need that doesn't need to be retained. And then there's behavior change and intrinsic skills that are going to help our people navigate change, be more agile, that type of thing. I can tell you right now, your people aren't sat saying, I need either of those things. Oh. They're expecting L&D to tell them what they should be doing. Pathways, crucial, in my opinion. We cannot just have a self-service buffet. It doesn't work. I don't know about you guys. I'm a mother of two, and if I have any time to myself, I'll go on Netflix and be like, I really want to watch something. And then I scroll around for like 10, 15 minutes. Like, I don't know what to watch. There's so many things. My list has like 60 different stuff on it. What do I watch? Which one do I pick? There's so many options. And then I leave and go and sit on my phone and scroll. So I guess what I'm trying to...
vendors right now, when we last went, and this is another tangent, when we last went for Learning Tech, everybody was the only AI learning platform with X. Everybody had that, the only AI learning platform with whatever X. And a couple of years ago, it was, we are the Netflix of learning. Do you remember the Netflix of learning days?
I do. Yeah. Did you see Fosway's No, it was a bad time. Did you see Fosway's report about the AI prevalence? So it's pretty much all just marketing drivel at this stage. Very little of it is in a roadmap in that technology or in any way planned on being delivered. Only like under 10% was in beta or piloting. So be very careful about what people are saying versus what's going to be delivered.
Yeah, and two things, and I did write about these in the book, but the book was it's dated, right? Because I mean, as soon as you publish, it takes a long time to publish. But the first one is like your AI, if you have AI, has to be defensible as of June 23rd, I believe it is, in Europe. So meaning if it's being used for anything to make decisions, for example, if it's learning being then driving you to internal mobility opportunities or anything like that, it has to be defensible. So somebody can't say that there's bias. Also, there's a big difference when you peel back the layer on what some people say is AI and what is just an algorithm. And it's not learning anything. There's nothing in it. But I will tell you a true story. I had a vendor show me which is what everybody has. They've got a content repository, a RAG, and they've got an AI coach, and they say this is the next best thing. You're going to be able by avatar, to talk to it. And I said, okay, well, how did you train that coach? And they said, well, it has an SOP, so standard operating procedure, of 2 pages, 2 robust pages, plugging into your LLM of choice. All right, and I'm thinking. So there's nothing different really than those 2 pages, but there was no iterative learning. There was no memory to it, which was a whole other thing. I know memory is difficult, but I was like, for something, but yeah, it was a 2-page SOP. And I just thought, wow, that's all you've trained it on. That's
Can
it.
I ask just for context, because I don't know if that's a lot or a little. How long is Sven's?
Oh, well, how long is Sven? Well, that's a personal
Well,
question.
because it says more than two. Don't go back to the acronym.
Definitely more. And also too, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
a terrible
And chance
joke.
to do a very simple
Yeah.
task, right?
Right. And so Sven also too has access to my emails, my voice, my tone. I uploaded some examples. I gave it a copy of my book to understand like how I parse sentences and how I speak and what my tone is. Yeah, so there's a lot more than a two-pager. When I see an SOP typically for, I've seen some that are like 80 to 100 pages in their
Wow.
robustness that they're constantly refining and reiterating on. And so what I mean in all of this is buyer beware. Make sure that you're not just buying an interface that plugs you into your LLM, because copy paste is cheap. And if you can just do that, I know you want some things just within your environment. So make sure you're using Copilot, for example, that's just in your ecosystem. So there's a lot to consider, but peel back the layers. Don't be duped by some of this, because there's a lot of junk out there. Sorry.
The ones which the AI which plugs into your content library and tells you what to learn, that's the bit that got me, actually, because you would think that it's learning. So if it recommended something and that wasn't quite it, and the more you interacted with it, the more personalized it got to you to realize, okay, this is how this is the what this person's role is, this is the context in which they learn best, and this is how they want. But the idea that no, I could switch it on tomorrow and I'm starting from scratch with it again and again, that's a little bit pointless.
Yeah, well, memory is hard, right? Yeah, and it doesn't have that. I mean, Google even remembers stuff about you. I mean, if you don't think it does, go on DuckDuckGo, that has absolutely no cookies to remember you, and you'll see how frustrating it is. But memory is tough. It is remembering some things. Well, okay, when I say it, I'm being very pejorative and very generic. But even if you say use ChatGPT, it will remember some things about you, but definitely not everything. And it's hard to. It is a complex, especially within corporate environments. I prefer to augment that memory with the personalization, like where it's pulling that personalization from, like your HRIS or your CRM, because then it doesn't have to remember things, but it's always knows where you are, where you're positioned within the organization, things like that. Ideally, though, it would know how you learn, right? But that can be harder.
I can tell you what, so for us, and you've brought it up as well with the skills revolution, and Ashley used the word skills as well. That for us is, and you also said pathways, Ash, which is exactly how we are thinking at the moment. And it's early days, right? But what I would like from AI is not, I don't need more content. The world does not need more content. I don't care how quickly. And it's also, and we'll talk a bit about the learning experience architect role that you had researched. But I think the first thing that we want to look at is exactly using AI to process this vast amount of data that sits in our job descriptions, that sits in our performance management goal systems, that sits in our, whether it's talent acquisition or the HRIS, or where we hold our certs, and process all of that and go, okay, these are the jobs and these are the skills needed in order to perform those jobs, alongside the experience and the knowledge and qualifications. And therefore, this is the learning pathways that we recommend, that I can then move on to our LXP and display. So that's what we're doing. And it's we've got 780 something roles. Don't even know how many jobs that equates to, but at least at the role level, if we can start doing that, and that's where we're looking at AI for. And that's also where we are seeing the pitfalls. That's where we are seeing LXPs claiming to have AI that can do it for you, skills taxonomies claiming that they can do. You ask 10 different providers what's a skill, you get 20 different answers. For me, Java is not a skill. I don't know, when you say Java, whether you're an expert in Indonesian coffee or whether you are a coder. I don't know. And there isn't, and that's where I'm seeing the issue with the market, that nobody's sitting down with the CLO, with the chief talent officer, and going, what is the context within which skills are working in your organization? Therefore, how can my AI contribute to converting that into people's development faster? Simples. And I can't find that. And if anybody can find that, oh, please do not inundate me with sales messages now on LinkedIn.
You just put chum in the water. You just put chum in the water. Don't.
But
You'll
it's
be
a
all
general
right.
question, right? And you also use the word ecosystem, and this is the exact issue because L&D, we will buy content libraries. We will loosely map soft skills, leadership skills, functional skills, technical skills, and then spray and pray, and then you've got it, right? You've got it all. But if you were trying to link your learning to your talent acquisition, to your HRIS, so that it all makes it to your career system and your talent management and talent identification and your high potential, suddenly what you want is technology that helps you do that. And that for me is the magic of AI, not in the building of content and the making of stuff. That's
But you know
not
where
what
I'm taking, a lot of inspiration though from for that exact ecosystem, or how like I'm connecting systems, is actually supply chain management, and looking at how companies and think of a skill like a product SKU, a stock code, and look how they manage it, and when do they decide they need to build or produce based on forecasting from previous years, or from what's hot in the market. Do we need to have a what is it, a labubu or labudu? I don't know what it is. But doobie-doo, not a new, and definitely not a spell. So, but the idea then that and I'm looking at how they manage those systems, everything from logistics to delivery. There's a lot of parallels, and like in another world, I would love to take those systems and how they're using AI to really understand that. Everything from how does the stock expire to when do I need to buy, borrow, build. Oh, that's not going to work because that plug is the wrong voltage for this country, etc., etc. Anyway, Ashley, you look like you're jumping in, so I'll hand it over.
No,
sorry.
not at all. I was thinking, obviously, like marketing has been using things like automation for a really long time,
Absolutely.
Right? Behavior-based interventions, if this, then that. We've got data points on people. We're going to map out this whole glorious thing and say, okay, well, if someone does this on our website, we're going to present them with this or send them this email, abandoned cart stuff, so on and so forth. It kind of feels to me like the AI stuff is fantastic, and I agree with like leveraging masses of data and making meaning out of that. Like that's a task that no human, I would say, wants to do. So the thing that I think though is in terms of our skill sets in L&D, we've almost skipped a step. So like the scenario that you just described, Serena, with what you were looking at with skills taxonomies, and I thought, okay, you build pathways, but still, how do you get people to get there? Again, it's not enough for it to just be there. So then you need a level of, you can't send comms constantly manually. So there needs to be a level of automation that could be based on the personas and the data that you create, where you could then have AI taking that data and giving you insights into actually this is where people are dropping off. Is it something to do with the product? Is it something to do with your messaging? So on and so forth. But I think there has to be that in-between layer as well. So we've got the product, we've got the marketing, and then AI sitting above it all to give you the really meaningful insights that you could find yourself, but it would take you quite a long time to do. I don't even see platforms doing automation well. Never mind AI.
Actually, Ash, that's also something that we're talking to you about in the future. Our L&D function and the roles within it need personas in themselves. In order, like, what is your role in an organization's success, and how do I map you out as a person? Because if you don't know what your function inherently exist for, then you can't possibly market yourself or what you're selling. And that's something I know that we're talking to you about as well, because we've had so much of transformation in the last few months, which brings me also, Laurie, you have a lot of emphasis on the book on the learning experience architect, and how the role of L&D is evolving. So I was wondering if you could take us through that a little. And then I know there's 9 minutes left. Oh my God. But we did call this. we did call this the 8 levers, and the levers, LEAVERS. And I know we had come up with a couple of very hilarious things of who are the levers of EdTech and L&D. So I do want to, as our parting thing, give a little thought to what is the stuff that just go. You don't have to talk. Bye, Felicia. What's our bye, Felicia, in L&D and EdTech? What are our levers? So first, let's talk about the learning experience architect, because that's cool. And then let's end on Felicia.
Sounds good. So I've also too been managing some of the comments happening on LinkedIn.
There's wow, great. I have no idea.
Quite fun. Catherine Gill also points out too that Emily Maybe at Zapier recently did a great webinar on building a simple workflow versus agent, which is highly phenomenal. So I'm going to be looking that one up. Payal Mota says it's almost as if data must be used, knowing you might not get it all right in the first go, but it's how we can eventually get to the heart of what we need to do to drive real income. Absolutely. Carrie McVitie is laughing at Psychoskiller. Hopefully we're amusing people. Same with Sarah Snyderman. Thank you. Shout out from John Hinchcliffe, who is not, can we clarify, married to Ashley Hinchcliffe?
We have slightly different spellings, but people genuinely thought it was like the L&D wedding of the century.
Exactly. It was in another universe maybe, but no, there's a very important difference in the surname. So, learning experience architect, I see this as somebody. They rely on what I call triggers, and they are designing those triggers to get seed to fruit upskilling. And those triggers they are similar to, say, a campaign that you might have in L&D, but a little more robust in what they're doing in terms of the experiences. So to give you an idea that I use in the book, a person goes on to the LMS because they're old school with a K, and they complete level 4 in Spanish. Well, that causes a trigger, and that trigger is the next time that they log into Excel or Word, we've set up a trigger to say, "Hola, would you like to change your language settings to Spanish?" Because we now feel that you're at a level where we can start to see that. And then it looks at how well you're interacting with the Spanish. Are you able to do it well, or do you turn it off? If you turn it off, okay, that's another. Then we look at another trigger. When we see that you're getting to a proficiency, we might invite you to a Spanglish or Spanish speaking, Slack group or Teams group, and say, "Hey, we want to introduce you to this person who's learning Spanish. Maybe there's a cohort of them," and that's another trigger. And then when we see that maybe you're mastering certain other parts of grammar, that's when we say, okay, we're going to push that data over to the talent marketplace and maybe get you on a stretch assignment working with a team that is, based in Colombia. Okay, so this is just sort of different ways, but you can see they're orchestrated learning experiences that it's no longer saying I'm going to build a course, but I'm going to build this learning this learning experience. And it's not even really a pathway from a content standpoint, but there's a number of different things that you can do, and that's what I see the learning experience architect do. Ashley, hand up. I will go on mute. Go for it.
I love this. I think that is absolutely the future. Like, we don't need any more SCORM. That's, fine. The only thing I think is that requires such a broad and in-depth understanding of everything that you have available in a learning environment, down to modules. And again, if we're buying huge libraries, we just don't know, do we? So all I was thinking was really more of just kind of an obtuse point to say, I just don't think a lot of L&D actually has that view on the depth of their product. So they don't even really know what they've got. Never mind being able to effectively map it like that. I mean, it'd be incredible.
I agree. I think it's the direction to go. I think we can use AI to assist us the same way that we used to do with email, for example. Like, if you put personalization in the header, more chance of opening it. Well, we start to see patterns emerge. When I start thinking about these types of, and I call them campaigns, but I got to think of a better word, because I'll ask Sven for a better word, because campaign, it applies something else in learning. And I'm not thinking about it. I'm not thinking about it that way. It's not what it is. It's more the trigger design of it is what we want to be really, really concerned with. But when I go into companies, sometimes I'll triangulate some data just from their HRIS and from from their LMS usage. And I'll start to just look at what are some patterns, what are some things that I'm seeing, people who have a certain skill, what do they have in common? Like where did they go? What Slack groups are they a part of, or Teams groups are they a part of? Who do they normally talk to? And start pulling some of those things together to just get an idea. But I think ultimately it is going to be very data driven, and we're going to need some trial and error. There's going to be, a lot of things that we're going to have to figure out. But I do think it's possible. I just hope that L&D doesn't become so wedded to the course and course design, because I don't think the one size fits all standard course, I know we need it for regulatory purpose, but I think it lacks the personalization. It lacks the context, as that, Dr. Serena, so astutely pointed out as well. And I think that we have to start thinking differently. I want to believe.
It's back again to the context, right? I've been saying this constantly. Organizations are forming, merging, acquiring and being acquired, and even folding at a faster pace than ever before. And if you look at the next generation coming into the workforce, I look at my 16-year-old and her relationship with technology, and you look at all the wonderful things happening in AI and robotics, machine learning, all of this, and then and the amount of organizations being formed on the back of this innovation, right? And fintech and pharmatech and biotech and tech. And with all these very, very smart, intelligent, astute people who come with an element of psychological safety that they're going to build things and it's going to be cool, and then it's going to break, and then they will learn from it, and then they'll build again. And all they want is that framework of the organization, which makes it safe to learn a few design thinking principles, what you should know, a bit about psychological safety. And then L&D comes along and goes, oh, no, that's not how you learn. Here's my 20,000 host database. Help yourself. Oh, hello. You must be smoking.
Ooh.
Something. I mean, the delusion in us, and you use the word relevancy a few times. How irrelevant what we're peddling to the organization or the individual's needs. So, well, there we go. There's 2 minutes left, and that's my first lever. Please stop investing in content libraries without a forethought to how and what my people need to learn in order to do their jobs. My first lever. Bye-bye, Felicia, to multiple content libraries that sit around in your system. That's my lever. Go.
Well, in the comments, Mauricio has said the death of SCORM is definitely an interesting barrier that will shape how L&D progresses. And I think he's absolutely correct, because ultimately we are very wedded to our ways of doing and quite obstinate, I think. So what I'm going to put in the bin, put in the sea, the levers of L&D, is the fixed mindset that we have that people want to learn and they want to go and find our learning experiences. That is not how it works. That's not what people want. And we are going to continue to see dwindling engagement rates and excessive spending on nothing that drives impact if we don't change our attitude a little bit.
Excellent one. Excellent show.
Only till we have which is very quickly. Then there's no spend.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The one that I really want to see bend is the concept that, just because something is AI, that it's good. Okay, AI can be really, really terrible, and slapping AI on it is not helping. So when I'm looking at AI, and if you have some things, I want to see efficacy. If you are not doing closed loop reporting, that to me, and closed loop reporting meaning like in real time, you're looking at outcomes and you have some way to plug that in. I don't want to see it, because then it's just supposition at that point.
Awesome. And on that note, so first of all, I didn't think to look at LinkedIn, and now I'm completely distracted. I think because we were having this chat, I kept thinking that we'd be, three people with the Billy no mates, or except three mates, and no one listening in on us. So for everyone who dialed in, thank you very, very much. For those who didn't dial in, the recording is obviously on LinkedIn, but we'll also upload it onto my YouTube channel for organizational mastery. And
we're going to do some edits on this, aren't we?
Oh, no.
The one on LinkedIn is just there, so no. But, I mean, I think it should just be rough and quick and dirty.
Well, I also have to give a special shout out to Maurizio because he actually was on my webinar that I had before this. So thank you. Thank you, Toronto.
Aw.
You
Nice
have
to
a
see you.
stalker. Sorry.
No, Maurizio, you are not.
Wow.
I appreciate you joining,
Is it
and
Sven?
especially somebody who is local.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't know how to stop this, Ashley.
I'll stop it. Thanks, guys. See you
Okay,
later.
Bye.